30 players that could be better in the second half, one for each team. All coming up next with Fred Zinkie and Jeff Erickson on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. Hopefully you like our new look if you're streaming live with us. We are at rotowire.com. If you want to check us out on RotoWire, you can get a free, a 15% off any RotoWire subscription by using promo code YouTube15. That's YouTube15 to check out RotoWire. It's more than just a fresh coat of paint. We got a lot. Our football draft kit is live on the site. Our football draft app is live. All of our baseball coverage continues through the season. Don't worry. We have not forgotten about baseball. It is, after all, a baseball podcast right here. Fred Zinkie, what's going on? Other than the power, what is going on?
Power is out here, but you know what? You know where the power is on is with the Toronto Blue Jays. That's where the power is on right now.
Nice.
That's where the power is on, even in Chicago last night. So, just living life as a fan of a first place team for the first time in a very, very long time.
Yeah, enjoy it. Savor the flavor. That's pretty awesome. Sure. Absolutely. So let's jump into this right away. We'll eschew the news and notes, jump right into the concept. 30 players, one on each team, that could be better in the second half for various reasons. Why don't you explain the concept?
Yeah, so I just thought there might be some tips here that could help people on the waiver wire or on the trade market. But these are guys we'll see a variety of reasons. Some have underperformed, some have been hurt, some maybe are going to get an improvement on their role for one reason or another. But these are players who I thought, have the potential to be much more valuable in the second half than they've been so far.
Absolutely. So let's just jump right into it. First team is Arizona Diamondbacks, and we had to change who we were going to list here. Originally, it was going to be Shelby Miller. Alas, now it is Kevin GInkel.
Yeah, so I can't get too hyped over Kevin GInkel, but he's kind of like the last man standing. I mean, Justin Martinez is gone, AJ Puck is gone, Shelby Miller's now gone. I mean, so like not Martinez, but like Miller could be back, but it's a forearm. Like, we'll see. Really, though, GInkel got the save last night. He has not pitched well this year, but he has pitched well lately. So, or at least good enough. So he's been good enough lately. He's kind of just the last man standing in that bullpen. So I wouldn't bid a lot on him, but I think he's worth a bid on Sunday night in NFFC leagues or a waiver wire claim in leagues that where you could pick him up right now. Yeah, like I said, I isolated, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I isolated his last 3 weeks or something like that. And he has been better. It was something like a 7-1 strikeout to walk in his last 7 appearances and good ratios over that time. Yeah,
absolutely. So I do have the numbers in front of me. Last 30 days, 540, 140, but in the last 14 days, 3 ERA, 117 whip. That's 6 outings, 5-1 K to walk. When he first came back, his velocity was down. He got sent down. He got called back up at the end of June. And he's been better since then. Got the save obviously last night. When Miller with the surprise IL trip that we always love seeing there. One of my favorite things, Fred. So we'll move on.
The old Monday night IL trip. That is a tough one.
Indeed. Shea Langeliers, he was lovingly called Bangaliers by Scott Genstad and others heading into the season. Been a little bit of a tiny disappointment, maybe not even a major disappointment, but was hurt. He's healthy now.
Oh. Yeah, and that's just where I was coming from with the A's. I didn't feel good picking any of their pitchers, just because it's such a tough park to pitch in and not a great pitching staff in the first place. But so looking at their hitters, Langeliers is someone who is a legit 30-homer player. The good news for Langeliers is that park is really playing just like we had hoped it would for hitters. So as far as a power park, it's playing as well, and a run-producing park, it's playing as well as any park in baseball. So you've got a legit 30-homer power catcher playing in a park, that suits his skill set. He's healthy now. He's been okay so far, but I think he could be even better in the second half.
Yeah. 12 homers, 31 RBI this year. Last year, he finished with 29 and 80. I think he'll do better than his accumulated stats so far. Atlanta Braves, Austin Riley. I hope you're right on this one because I traded for him in XFL and I have him in my only home keeper league. So 2 places where I could really use him to not just crush it the second half this year, but then get back on track and be good next year as well.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like I couldn't. It was hard. The Braves have so many injuries, and they're kind of a veteran team locked up in contracts. So it's a little tricky finding someone. But we talked about Riley a bit last week. The average exit velocity is still there. The power hasn't been there to go along with it. So I'm just going to guess that high average exit velocity eventually leads to more home runs.
Right on. All right, let's move on then. Easy one there to talk about there, especially because there's so many. We've bemoaned their struggles already, so we won't belabor the Braves this time. Let somebody else do that this time. Baltimore Orioles. Who do you got?
So Tyler O'Neill, I think, is an interesting guy for the second half. I added him on Sunday in a 15-team league, and it wasn't as expensive to add him as I thought maybe it was going to be. Like I put in what I bid that I thought was okay, and ended up getting him. Like there wasn't much interest in him, and I get why there wasn't interest. Like he's been really bad this year, but like we know that good Tyler O'Neill can be really good. Like last year, 31 homers in 113 games. He had that season in 2021 with the Cardinals where he hit 34 in 138 games. He also steals the odd base. I find that Tyler O'Neill just has one of the widest spectrums of performances of anyone in baseball. Like he can be hurt for long stretches. He can be bad for stretches. He can be on fire for stretches. So I just think there's potential here. Someone who's kind of maybe been left for dead in a lot of leagues. Like there is the potential for him to hit at a 30 homer pace in the second half now that he's healthy. And something I noticed when I was doing some research on a different player the other day, the Orioles, they're not getting back in the race, but their lineup has been better. Like there's something like say 10th in runs scored since June 1st. So they're back to being say at least like an average lineup. So I think O'Neill, like I don't have his NFBC ADP from say way back in main event season, but he was someone people were after, like coming off a 31 homer year.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he could be someone who bounces way back in the second half.
The reason why you paid pretty little for him this time around is he's probably on at least his third owner of the season in redraft leagues. Unless even in a 15 teamer, I've seen him picked up, dropped, picked up again. But yeah, copious choices on the Orioles, by the way. I think you could have argued for Westberg as well. Jordan Westberg. I think you could have made the case, maybe even, someone, is middling as like Kobe Mayo, even, although his playing time is starting to shrivel up a little bit. But Colton Cowser, you could get more counting stats from him. Lots of different options there. We could do that.
I could have brought Grayson Rodriguez back from the dead, right? Like Grayson Rodriguez could return at some point in the second half and be really good. I didn't feel confident enough in that because we still don't really have a firm timeline on him. So, but there's another guy who's just completely forgotten, sitting on waivers in so many leagues, and was considered at one point in the past year or two to be like a borderline ace.
Yep. Let's move on to the Boston Red Sox. Lots of kids on this team. You have one in particular you want to highlight.
Well, yeah, we might as well pick the best kids. Roman Anthony, like he's been okay, but I think there's just, and I think this was an easy snap call. Like there's just potential for so much more, and we're starting to see it. Like his OPS in July is 952 in the first 6 games of July. There's just, he just so easily fits the profile of, number one prospect who comes up, isn't amazing right away, but doesn't completely embarrass himself either. And then gets his feet wet and really takes off. And what I do like is the Red Sox are not only playing him all the time, but they're also hitting him high in the lineup. So should be easy for him to get counting stats. I think now that the dust has settled on the Devers trade, like we could see in the second half, I don't see this team as a playoff team, but we could see this new wave with guys like Anthony really start to take control of the organization.
Indeed. The RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast is brought to you in part from Home Run Forecast. Can the weather really help a baseball travel farther? Turns out, yes, the air can affect how far a baseball carries by up to 20%. Home Run Forecast uses real-time weather data to rate each game's conditions for ball flight, assigning every matchup a 1 to 10 score based on how home run friendly the air is. On the premium site, you'll get game-by-game, hour-by-hour index values, 24-hour forecast, wind direction, roof status, and more, all for less than $6 a month. Check it out at homerunforecast.com and gain a weather edge before first pitch. Very timely this time of year. Also, with a lot of weather in the forecast for the Tuesday night games, always handy on that as well. Let's move on, Fred, to the Chicago Cubs, a team and ballpark that is maybe the most weather affected of them all. Who do you have on the Cubs that you want to highlight?
Yeah, so I want to highlight Ian Happ. He's kind of been all over the map um, so far this year. He started the season hitting for average and scoring runs, but not hitting for any power. And then
Mm-hmm.
in June, he hit 9 home runs and drove in 22 runs, but he hit 208. And so far in July, he has 1 hit in 6 games. So when I took a little deeper dive on Happ, he has one of the lowest BABIPs of any player in the last month or so. Um, that's going to Charlie turn around. He's still holding that spot, that leadoff spot for the Cubs, and I think he's totally locked in there. Like they never really veer off of him. I just think there's the potential here for him to kind of put it all together in the second half, like hitting leadoff for the Cubs as a guy who can get on base like Happ. Like that could put you in any stretch of time. You could be right near the top of the league in runs scored. And then, like I said, we saw the power in June, but the BABIP was low. We know that he can have a much better batting average than what he has so far. So I just see the potential in the second half for it to all come together. Like if you told me that Ian Happ led the National League in runs scored after the All-Star break, I would say, yeah, that could totally make sense.
All right. Let's move on to the Cincinnati Reds. My Cincinnati Reds. Who do you got for my Reds, Fred?
Well, this one, I got some cold water on this one last night, but I decided to leave it
Uh-oh.
on so we could talk about it because it's your Cincinnati Reds. But
Yeah.
Hunter Greene, setback. Like I put Hunter Greene on the list because I was like, you know what? If Hunter Greene hadn't been hurt in the first half, we'd probably be talking about someone who's a top 10, valued starter at this point, maybe even top 5 or 6, the way had been pitching. And my theory was he's going to be back in short order. And, he could be someone who's right near the top in strikeouts and everything. Excuse me, in the second half, a little bit of a setback yesterday. So now I could back off on that, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. He's coming back from a groin, like it's not his arm. I don't know. The groin's been a persistent problem this year, so maybe he never pulls it all together. What do you think? Do you think that Hunter Greene in the second half could be a top 10 starter?
Could, but the biggest ability is availability, and right now he
Yeah.
doesn't have that there. Groin injuries, hamstring injuries, they can recur, and this one was already worse than expected to begin with. So that does concern me. We do have the All-Star break conveniently right now, but I don't think he comes back right after the All-Star break anymore. I think it's a little bit pushed further back. I think is the case there. So I instead think that that's probably the way it's going to go. I would think maybe end of the month. I turned down one trade. I'm going for it in XFL, and it would have cost me Hunter Greene. I mean, my main haul would have been Max Fried. I would have upgraded a couple other
Mm,
positions as well. But I also have, Fried would have been more expensive and accelerating faster in contract too. So I turned it down. And then part of this might be homerism, and that might come back to haunt me there a little bit, but we'll see. If everybody comes back, I get Hunter Greene, Michael King, and Cole Reagan's back, right? For the
oof,
last 2 month stretch. That would be pretty handy.
pretty,
So
pretty good.
yeah. Yeah, there's reasons for hope still. I'll throw another one that's healthy right now. I say Matt McLain is going to be much better over the second half, and I think he's already turned that corner a little bit. He's already batting second a lot in the lineup again. He's had some pretty good series as of late. So maybe I'm cheating because he's already started to do it, but I think he cumulatively has a much better second half than first half.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I did think about him, and I felt like you're right. You're right. Like June 804 OPS, so he didn't steal any bases in June, which is weird. But the way McLean's season's gone, everyone we would much rather see him hit well. The steals will come back. Like he's
Yeah,
stolen a base in July. Like the steals will come back. That's not really an issue. He's fast. Like his average
right.
sprint speeds top 5 or 10%. So and then just jumping back to Greene, and you were talking trade. That was kind of my thought on Greene originally. Is I was hoping he'd be back right after the All-Star break. But even if he's back at the end of July, like I can see a case where if you want Max Fried, if you want Hunter Brown, like their owner's going to want basically your best hitter or something like that for him.
Right.
You can probably get Hunter Greene for like your third best hitter or something like that, or your fourth best hitter right now.
Sure.
So that was my thinking. And then there's the potential once Greene is back, he was pitching at a similar level to those top 5, top 7 starters. So that was kind of my theory is if you don't want to pay your Corbin Carroll, right, your Francisco Lindor, you drop down a little bit and you give them like your Teoscar, maybe that one's a little too low, but something like that. And you pick up one of these pitchers who's hurt, but is clearly really good and is going to be back soon. Take a little bit of a chance that way.
Yep, indeed. So I think that's a good path. All right. Of course, I was overly indulgent on my Reds. Let's move on to the Cleveland Guardians. Who do you got?
So Slade Cecconi is someone who I didn't love. So there's some teams where um like someone just jumped right out at me. Cleveland they didn't, but Sacconi, like I felt like I've seen some potential here. Like he's a strikeout per inning. He's been pretty consistent, not dominant, but consistent. He's only given up more than 3 runs in one of his 9 starts. Cleveland usually does pretty well with their pitchers. So I thought, you know what, this is someone who's I think still considered like kind of like borderline even rosterable in 12
Right.
team leagues, and 15s he's rosterable but maybe in and out of your lineup, and maybe he could graduate to being someone who maybe sticks on 12 team rosters the rest of the season.
Yeah. I like it. I think the opportunity is going to be there. I mean, they're going to get Bieber back at some point, but I don't think it's Ciccone will be the guy that lost. Keep
No.
in mind that was their net. They got Ciccone and they got a compensation round draft pick for Josh Naylor. And so far, Naylor's been pretty darn good for Arizona. So that's and moreover, the Cleveland offense is cratered this year, just absolutely cratered.
Yeah, and that's why I struggled to find someone to pick from Cleveland, because
Yeah.
I didn't like their offense last year. I felt like they overperformed. I feel like what they're doing now
Agreed.
is who they are. So I looked through that lineup and I was like, oh, do I want to pick like Nolan Jones or someone to break out? No, not really. So then I'm looking in their rotation, and Clase's bounced back, so he's not going to be a pick anymore. So I looked through the rotation, like Gavin Williams walks too many batters. Tanner Bybee, he's okay. I don't know. I don't think he's gonna. So this was a team where, like I said, like I was a little bit scrambling, and this isn't one of my favorite picks, but I do think it's someone who could tick up. But yeah, I don't feel great about this roster. I wondered if like Cleveland is like a mid-market or below mid-market team, if it would make sense for them to cash out. I wondered at the trade deadline and maybe make some bold moves and fully reset. I don't know if that's Stephen Kwan or something like that, but maybe they cash out and just say like we need a reset because this team's not on the verge. I don't know. I don't know if maybe people listening or Cleveland fans will say that that's too harsh, but I don't know. I don't see this team like on the verge of going back up.
Yeah, I wanted to say Gavin Williams is making micro improvements, but I just looked at that walk column and it's at least 3 walks in all of
Yeah.
his last 5 starts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Against the Dodgers, he had that ugly 6-walk start. Now the Dodgers do that to a lot of teams. So, the Cubs get a lot of teams too. And he was rough against the Cubs there in terms of walks. Maybe Kyle Manzardo as a buy low, as Uncle Ted suggested. I'd also maybe suggest Chase DeLauder is going to get the call at some point in time too. But what we've seen with other prospects, just getting the call is merely enough. Isn't necessarily means promise of success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Colorado.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say DeLauder would be, for sure, an easy call on someone. I tried to stay away from guys who aren't in the majors because it would be easy on the bad teams or the potential sellers to list prospects. But DeLauder is for sure someone, if you're in a league with just open waivers, who's probably worth stashing.
Yeah. Colorado Rockies. Oh boy. Who do you got?
So I picked Brenton Doyle. This is probably like a little bit of a heartfelt pick in the sense of like, okay, there's not much to like on Colorado. Brenton Doyle was so good last year. He actually started off really good this year, and then it was a situation where he and his wife lost their unborn child. It was on April 7th. It was on April 17th. On April 17th, or like when that happened, he had an 888 OPS. He was actually off to a really good start to the season. Since then, like he's just real, like it's like the stark difference, is remarkable. Like 888 right before that happened. Since then, it's like I think in the 500s. He just hasn't been able to regroup. You really feel for the guy, so he's a great guy to cheer. So I thought, you know what, there's nothing redeeming about the Rockies. Let's find a guy who we could cheer for. So this is a guy we could cheer for in the second half, that maybe he's able to clear his head over the All-Star break. Maybe just some hits start falling for him. Something good starts happening, because you just feel for the guy. Like it's been a really rough stretch, obviously in his personal life and in his professional life at the same time. So, and he's one of the few Rockies who has like a really high ceiling if things started to click for him. We saw that last year.
Absolutely. All right. One more in the C's. Chicago White Sox. Guy that may be the closer there. Who do you have?
Yeah, that's what I went with. Grant Taylor as just someone who, maybe he's the closer. He's gotten some saves recently. He's pitched okay. They don't really have anything else going on in that bullpen. So, and Chicago, like their pitching staff is not quite as bad probably as people think. I forget where they rank in ERA. I'll see if I can pull it up here, but like they're not like bottom 2 or 3 in ERA like they were last year. So there maybe could be like they're like I'm trying to put lipstick on a pig, I guess, a little bit, but yeah, they're 20th. There it is, 20th in ERA. Like that's not bad. Like
Yep.
4.14. They have a 4.14 team ERA, so they can pitch a bit. So that means when they do win some games, there could be some close games to win where they give up just 3 runs or something, you get 4. So there could be some save chances there for them. There haven't been a lot so far. How about that the White Sox as a team this year have 11 saves? Oh,
And
that's so low.
it's so
11,
low.
but
And their first traditional save took like over a month. The
yeah.
first save they had was like a 3-inning variety. So it was crazy. So yeah, so that's why you don't see high save totals. Fun fact, you could probably win money on this. The White Sox figure out a way to do it, but the setup would be the key part here. The White Sox have a better team ERA than both the Blue Jays and the Dodgers right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
that's
Jays,
a
I'm
really
surprised at too. The Dodgers, I had a
yeah.
feeling at least.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, so that was my thinking is that, if they pitch decently in the second half, and this is a team that should be, they have some young guys in the, they could go either way. Some of these guys like Shane Smith are starting to maybe hit the wall. They do have some prospects though, who could come up too and bridge from those guys. By the way, while we're on the topic of team saves, how about this one? The second lowest total of team saves this season is the Braves, and it's 12. 12 saves. They have 39 wins. They only have 12 saves. Like the Braves have 4 less saves than the Rockies, even though they have 18 more wins than the Rockies. So that stat, like the White Sox having 11 is surprising. The Braves having 12, they have 9 more wins than the White Sox and only 1 more
Fred,
save.
my 6 leagues where I have Reese Olson are hyper aware
Yeah.
of that stat.
The Braves have the least save chances of any team this year, including the White Sox. So
unbelievable. One more trivia, and then we'll move on to our topic again. Who has the lowest team ERA? And hint, it's not even close. They have like they're at 330. The next best team is at 343.
So I have it in front of me now because I just looked up the White Sox. But if I was guessing cold, I would have got it wrong. I would have guessed the Tigers, but I would have got it wrong. So why don't you tell everyone who it is?
It's the Texas Rangers. They're at 330. The Giants are at 343. The Royals are at 347. Then the Tigers. Interesting. Astros, who are very good at run prevention, are 352, and they've got like 4 unknowns in their rotation right now. If they're going 6-man, or at least 3 unknowns. Gusto, Gordon, Walters. I mean, it's wild to see what the Astros are piecing together there. It's the MacGyver of pitching staffs, and they're still a top 5 pitching staff. That's just crazy to me. All right, moving on. The Detroit Tigers. Everything's gone well for them so far. Fred, who could be someone that could improve?
Yeah, so I said Reese Olson because, like you said, everything has gone well so far. So instead, I picked someone whose season was interrupted by injury. I just think there'd be a lot more buzz around Reese Olson. One of the things I noticed, like in like Yahoo leagues, things like that, like he's way under rostered. Like we're talking about a guy whose career numbers, 3rd-year guy, 358 ERA, 116 WHIP. I think Reese Olson is someone in those leagues who would be like 90%, 80, 90% rostered if he had been healthy all season. So like you said, most of the players on the Tigers are playing at or near their like maximum potential. Olson has played at that, but it's only been for 10 starts. So if he's healthy for the second half, like that could really make a big difference. He was even on waivers in one of my 15 team leagues maybe 3 weeks ago, and I put in a competitive bid on him and I didn't get him. I want to say I bid maybe like $50 out of 1,000. And for a guy who was still a couple weeks away and a starter, I felt like that was reasonable, but I didn't get him. And I was really disappointed in that because I felt like he could make a big impact. It's hard to find starting pitching in 15 team leagues.
Absolutely. My Tout Wars team really could use Olson to stay healthy this time around and return to form. Sawyer Gipson-Long, someone I keep an eye on too. Hurt again right now, but I think he contributes at some point down the stretch. Houston Astros, we touted their run prevention. You've got one of their starting pitchers listed here.
Yeah, I think Brandon Walter has the potential. I think he's been paid probably underhyped, and I think he's got the potential to be pretty good. We'll see if he gets to stick in the rotation, but I mean, there are not many starters out there with a 33-2 strikeout to walk ratio. He's been homer prone. He's given up 6 home runs in six starts. So like homer prone for sure, not like crazy homer prone, but definitely homer prone. But 33-2 strikeout to walk ratio. I have a lot of teams where I've picked him up recently. I'm not expecting miracles, but it's just that it's hard to ignore that kind of ratio. And when we get to them, I don't think he's not actually. I know he's not the pitcher I picked, but against your Reds last night, Jansen Junk had a nice start, and he's kind of similar to Walter to me. Walter's a little younger, but actually he's not. They're the same age. But Junk has a 36-4. So those are 2 pitchers who just have these ridiculous strikeout to walk ratios. And I felt like weren't really like, I got Walter in some leagues for not much, like a couple weeks ago for like $20, and I got Junk on the weekend in a couple leagues for like the same kind of amount of money. So probably people talk about how important strikeout to walk ratio is, but when it comes with these lesser known players, I think maybe we aren't jumping on them quickly enough.
Yeah, you can't fight the funk with Jansen Junk. I mean, I use that on XM today too. So I'm double joking now. But you know what? I was on him. He was in my waterfall. I did pick him up in a league or two. He doesn't throw hard. He doesn't strike out a ton. But like you said, it's so funny. The Reds broadcast was actually touting how infrequently he walks someone, and then he walks someone, and then got to 3-0 on the next batter, but rallied back after that. It was like a key point in the game. A couple of different times where he rallied when the Reds kind of had him on the ropes. He escaped, and then the Reds, they did a little Dorf on golf baseball version there defensively in one of the innings last night, put that game out of reach. So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk KC. Who's your second half improver on KC?
So I picked Jonathan India because I was like, this guy can't possibly be this bad. Like he plays every day. He has 4 home runs and 0 steals. Like this is a guy who had 27 steals over the previous 2 years. He had 32 homers over the previous 2 years. I know this isn't Cincinnati as far as a home park goes. The Royals have not wavered on him as their leadoff hitter at all. And he's still got a 330 on base. So on a team that's not scoring and producing at all. So it's not like he's the only problem. So I thought, you know what, this Royals lineup's probably better than they've been so far. Like I believe they're last in runs scored. They're probably better than that. So as a group, they probably just improve at least a little bit. But like, is Jonathan India really like a 7 homer, 0 steal player when previous years he's kind of like a 15 guy? I do have one reason for reservation, and that's his career OPS in Cincinnati is I think it was 809, and his career OPS everywhere else is just a little over 700. So,
and can you consider Kansas City as worse than everywhere else?
Probably a little bit worse. So maybe he is like a 700 OPS guy, but it's not just that he's a 700 OPS guy. It's like, how does this guy not have like 5 steals at least as the
that's
Royals
true, especially batting leadoff most of the time.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing that's kind of crazy. I haven't really watched carefully on the Royals batting orders lately. I could double check on that if he's still batting in that spot, but they were expecting him to, he's projected to be leadoff again. They're expecting him to improve the team's overall lagging on base. That was one of those things. Get runners on in front of Witt and Pasquantino. And he actually does still walk.
A little
330 OBP, but 343 slug. I mean, that slug piece is so bad. And I guess Kauffman Stadium is part of it there. And the lack of Great American Small Park is also part of that. Like you said, not even running at all. Not 3 attempts. It's just hideous. You look hideous.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't love, I thought about picking someone like Cole Reagans because obviously his upside is tremendous, but we don't really have a timeline on him. So I decided to back off of that. Another neat stat about India, even though in his career, he was much better at Great American Ballpark. In his career, he's got 35 homers at home and 32 on the road. I know that factors in this season, which that's only half a year. Like he was better at home than on the road when he was with the Reds, but it wasn't like all of his home runs were coming on the road. So no. I think he's got 34 in Cincinnati. He's got 33 in other venues. So it's not like he wasn't hitting any home runs when he was a Red on the road.
Just not enough period though, I guess, really.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
So especially for a guy that was a first-round pick, high first-round pick at that, at a University of Florida, higher expectations were had. All right, guys. As always, we are partnering with the NFFC. We are, we love these guys. Love Greg and Greg Ambrosius, Tom Kastanek. The NFFC RotoWire Fantasy Football Online Championship is live. Play fantasy football against your favorite RotoWire experts on NFFC this football season. You can catch up with myself, Nick Whalen, Jim Coventry, Alan Soslowski, Joe Bartle, Scott Genstad, many more in the RotoWire NFFC Online Championship for a shot at $250,000. Sign up for a draft today at rotowire.com/high stakes. That's rotowire.com/high stakes. I'll be scheduling my first Beat Jeff Erickson draft in the very, very near future. So we're looking forward to that. Always love doing those drafts. Continuing on with our list of 30 players that could reasonably expect to be improved over the second half. Let's go to the Angels. Who do you got, Fred?
Well, I don't think he's going to improve because he hasn't given up an earned run since May 20th. That sounds pretty good to me. But his role can improve, and that's Reid Detmers. His role can improve. So Kenley Jansen, we'll see where things go because the Angels are still hanging around in the race. So maybe Kenley Jansen doesn't go anywhere. But if Kenley Jansen were to go somewhere, then Reid Detmers would be an obvious pick to take over as closer. Or if Jansen even falters or gets hurt. Like Jansen is one of the older pitchers in baseball and does have a bit of an injury history. So there's just a few ways that Detmers could get into the ninth inning.
Yeah, there are. There very well are. I think the left-handedness sometimes works against him.
Yep.
It's the only thing I'm concerned about. But yeah, I'm on board. Detmers has been great. A guy that I can't quite quit. So yeah, I'm on board with that one. How about the Dodgers? When you have everything, what needs to improve? Oh, wait, maybe health.
That's it. So this is the only team where I listed two players because they kind of go hand in hand with me. Tyler Glasnow and Blake Snell, injury-prone ace potential. Both are working their way back. Glasnow is back sooner. He's back this week. Snell's not back this week, but he's probably not too far off, although we'll see with Snell. But I mean, these were kind of easy snap calls. And then I did find the hardest teams sometimes to find someone on would maybe be a veteran team that is doing well. This team, the Cubs, it was harder to find players because they are doing well and these players are well established. So, and most of the Dodgers are, widely rostered already, but these are two players. They're all obviously rostered, but there are fantasy teams out there that are going to get back like a Glasnow and a Hunter Greene, or like you said, a Cole Reagans and a Snell or something like that in the second half, and could really take off in the pitching department because we've seen so many number one and number two fantasy pitchers get hurt, in the last couple months. Teams that have been able to hang on without them, like they're going to get them back, and they will obviously be so valuable down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't have any Glasnow, but I have all the Snell. So I get it there. And it's that Snell is not all around me right now, but we'll move on because that was just terrible. Like Snell has been. The Miami Marlins have not been terrible. They've been frisky. They've been playing really good ball. They beat the Reds last night. Our next guy homered last night, hit a moonshot. It was a homer in almost every ballpark.
Yeah, I really like Agustin Ramirez. Like I'm putting him way up in like my top 6-7 catchers for rest of season. I think this guy's just a legit 30 homer catcher who can also get you a reasonable batting average. He's been pretty consistent since he's been up. Like not like July's, we're just getting rolling, but he came up in late April. He managed to hit 3 homers in late April, but then 4 more in May, 5 more in June. He's already hit a couple in July. Batting average has been pretty consistent. So as far I think he's just in that like Langeliers category, and I like Agustin Ramirez a little better because I think the batting average will be better. Like I think Langeliers be like a 2 at best, maybe like a 240 type hitter, 30 homer guy. Agustin Ramirez, I think, can be like a 250, maybe like a little bit better in batting average, and also a 30 homer guy. So I just think this is someone who in one catcher leagues is under rostered and he's more getting treated like a fringe top 12 catcher, and I think he's much better than that.
Yeah. By the way, quick shout out on another Marlin as well to go along with this there. He's already kind of established some fantasy value, and I'm talking about Ronnie Henriquez. Now closing for the Marlins. Fred, did you know that Enriquez was DFA'd by the Twins this spring? They got him for free, basically.
Just goes to show like life as a reliever, first of all. There's so many stories of, relievers who are just, left for dead and then end up having like really good stretches. And then also, I think it also goes to show like the grind of the baseball executives, like to find
Yes.
these players. And that's the fun. Like if you're a baseball nerd or just a baseball fanatic, it doesn't have to be a nerd, like someone who loves baseball, like just that whole background of running a team. Like we always think about these high price trades, right? Like Agustin Ramirez came over in a big trade with the Yankees, but like in the Jazz Chisholm trade. But it's not all about the Jazz Chisholm trades. It's also about this just scouting and, talking in the offices and being like, oh, this Ronnie Henriquez guy, he's been waived. Like maybe he's got some potential. Let's bring him in, and pitching coaches working with him and maybe trying to get the best out of him. So I like all that stuff because and in every sport, I like that grind of how you build a franchise. So yeah, I think that's a pretty cool story. I picked him up in one or two leagues that are pretty important to me on Sunday.
Yeah, as our resident Marlins guy, PJ 322 mentioned earlier, Bendix is doing a good job raisifying this Marlins team, finding guys on the margins, and getting some, making some good moves. They've almost stripped to the studs. They're going to trade Alcantara probably, maybe Edward Cabrera, who's been on a very nice run lately. Maybe he gets dealt as well, but the pain is almost over. And the build is starting. So I think some good times are coming up for the Marlins, and they've passed the Braves, so they're already on the right path. The Milwaukee Brewers. This name bummed me out, Fred, although I think it belongs here. I'll tell you why it bums me out after you mention them.
Well, I mean, when you say players who could be more valuable in the second half, it wouldn't take much.
Yeah.
And it bums me out that I had to put it, but Nestor Cortes, who was a mid-round pick, I know because I picked him in a lot of 15-team leagues as a fit round 15, 16 type pick. You got 2 starts and a 9 ERA out of him, and then he's been out ever since. But he's on the rehab trail right now. Like he's on a rehab assignment right now, so he's probably not far off. The Brewers are in a really neat spot where, and I know you pay a little bit maybe more attention to them than the average team because they're in the Reds division, but again, like the Brewers look like they weren't going to be it this year. And now here they are. They're back up into the race. They found this amazing rookie starter in Jacob Misiorowski. They've got Logan Henderson just sitting in the minors who could probably come up and be a really good major league starter right now.
That is why Nestor Cortez's presence on this list bums me out because I've been holding on to Henderson in a couple of leagues, and I couldn't anymore. In one of my NFFC leagues, I had to cut Henderson this week. I don't see the immediate path because say they do cut bait with Jose Quintana. There's still Chad Patrick, 90s sitcom star Chad Patrick, as well as now Cortes that could be ahead of the pecking order on Henderson there. So in my NL only keeper league, I'm hanging on for dear life because I got him as a $1 player. So I'll just wait until next year. But that means I only have 2 reserve spots. I'm burning a reserve spot for the rest of the season there.
I'll give you one ray of hope with Logan Henderson. The Brewers are a little bit Rays like in that they're creative. And I could see a scenario where Nestor Cortes gives you second half value on a different team, like where they go roundabout at the trade deadline and they trade a pitcher and then use it's not that they trade a pitcher for a hitter, but there are holes in the Brewers lineup, whether you want to look at first base. I know Andrew Vaughn just came up yesterday, but it could be first base. Yeah, for sure. Could be first base, could be the outfield. But there are ways that the Brewers could have a much better lineup. So I could see a scenario where the Brewers look at their lineup and they say, let's make a trade where we trade Nestor Cortes for prospects. And then let's make a different trade where we trade prospects for a position player. And dealing from their pitching depth. So it's interesting how the Brewers, like, it's so Brewer like where they've gone from not having pitching depth to like you said, like they grab Quintana off the scrap heap, Chad Patrick emerges,
Priester for nothing.
Priester for nothing. That's right. A prospect like Misiorowski comes up and shoves right away. Woodruff's back. Like all of a sudden they go like 7 or 8 deep as far as starting pitchers who could start for a lot of teams. So I could see a roundabout way where they trade someone, and Cortes would be a guy for them to trade because if he could come up and just show he's healthy, like I think his career ERA is 3.88. There's a lot of potential playoff teams that would love to get a guy with a 3.88 ERA who's now healthy.
Yeah, no doubt. They also have Freddie Peralta back next year on an $8 million team option. Suffice to say, they'll be picking that up. But if things turn sideways, like really sideways, it won't be this year because they're already 11 games over 500. Say if they lose 10 in a row before going into the break, they still, I mean, before the trade deadline, they still probably are not trading him away. But in the case of Peralta, but we'll see, just because that's such a ridiculously good contract for them. So anyways, let's move on. I was going to say I wouldn't fall for this player for the Twins, but I'll lie. I will fall for this player again, and that is Royce Lewis.
Yeah, again, remember the premise of the list is should be better in the second half. Like this is like Nestor Cortes. How could he be any worse? 2 home runs and a 212 batting average at this point this season. Like, I don't know. When I looked through the Twins roster, I was like, come on, Royce Lewis can't be this bad. Like he just can't be this bad. Even last year he wasn't good, but it was a 747 OPS. He was on like a 30 homer pace last year. Like I just looked at it and I was like, this guy can't possibly be this bad. I don't know what better is for Royce Lewis. Like I'm not out there telling people to chase Royce Lewis and make sure you get him. Not at all.
Fred says to trade the moon for Royce Lewis.
Royce Lewis. But this guy, like, he must be better than this. And there's got to be a ton of leagues where he's just sitting on waivers. I'm not even saying in all those leagues I'd add him, but I guess you got to at least monitor him, right? Like there's still upside in this player.
Yeah, there is still upside. PJ says, I thought you guys would be talking about Bailey Ober right now. No, the less I have to talk about Bailey Ober, the better. I don't think anybody needs to hear any more of that. New York Mets. Who do you got?
Sean Manaea, easy call. He's coming off the IL, hasn't pitched this year. I think in some of the shallower leagues, maybe people have forgotten just how good Sean Manaea was last year. 3.47 ERA, 108 WHIP, 184 strikeouts. If Sean Manaea before he got hurt, like a lot of us are talking about him as like a number 3 mixed league starter. New York's doing really like he's coming back into a team that should make the postseason. So I think this is potential for this isn't like you get Hunter Greene back, but this is getting like a serious piece back to your fantasy team if you've been stashing Sean Manaea.
Yeah, for sure. And I have stashed in a couple of leagues like DCs or leagues where you have an IL spot. Devin Williams on the Yankees list. You believe, huh, Fred?
I don't know. I don't know if I believe, but like, I definitely think there's the potential. You know what? It would be here's another one of the bar bet games you could probably win. How many blown saves does Devin Williams have this year?
It's like 1 or something.
It is
really
1.
Low. Yeah.
It is actually 1 blown save that he has this year. Like talk about a malign guy over 1 blown save that he lost his job. He has the closer role back. Like even since Luke Weaver came back, they're using him as the closer. In June, Devin Williams, he only had 6 appearances, but a .93 ERA, 12 strikeouts. Sorry, he only had, he had 10 appearances. He had 6 saves. Anyways, .93 ERA, 12 strikeouts to no walks. And we know walks are sometimes a problem for Devin Williams. He's already showing signs that like he is coming back after that really terrible April. So and now the Yankees are in the thick of it. Like this is all hands on deck now for the Yankees. The Blue Jays are 3.5 games ahead of them. I think the Yankees are going to climb right back into that, but the Blue Jays are 3.5 games ahead of them. The Yankees just lost Clark Schmidt. It's all hands on deck for them to both try to win the division and try to make the playoffs. I think there's a scenario where, and Devin Williams he's a pending free agent. I think there's a scenario where the Yankees are motivated to work him hard in the second half to win games. He's motivated to work hard to be used often to show that beginning of the season, Devin Williams wasn't really him. So, I mean, we're talking about someone who's the first closer drafted in some leagues. So I think he's turned it around enough that I could get excited about him.
Luke Weaver hasn't converted a save since before he went on the IL. Also, he had a terrible, awful, no good week last week, 3 straight bad outings. The usage has been there that Williams has been still remaining the closer there too. All right, let's move on to the Philadelphia Phillies. Who do we got?
This is not one of my favorite picks, but I picked Max Kepler. I think he's a 20 homer guy who should have a better batting average. Like he's got a 240 BABIP. I think he probably should be like a 240, 250 hitter where he's a 212 hitter right now. Honestly, like I didn't really like anyone on the Phillies much. I could have picked Jesus Luzardo saying like he's just had a few really bad starts and if he could avoid them, but I don't know if he can avoid them. I think he could still have, could be one again, good for most starts. but have a couple bad starts. So I didn't want to pick him. I don't see a closer necessarily emerging on this team right now. The veterans are kind of being the veterans. I thought about picking Bryce Harper, but I decided not to. Like I don't know. I didn't love anyone really on the Phillies. I think if the Phillies have a guy who upticks in value in the second half, it'll be a reliever they trade for who becomes their closer.
Yeah, I'd say don't get your head in the stars on Kepler there.
No,
Yeah,
totally not. Maybe
yeah.
from not playable to playable. That might be it.
All right. Pittsburgh Pirates. Who do we have?
Bryan Reynolds. I don't know if this will for sure happen, but just as someone who does respect data, he's like way under his expected stats everywhere. Like batting average, he's 47 points below his expected batting average. Slug, he's 125 points below his expected slug. Like those are some of the biggest gaps of any player. So I didn't really love picking a Pirates position player because their offense is just in general so bad. But when I looked at how much Bryan Reynolds is below his expected stats and how Bryan Reynolds has been like a pretty consistent fantasy asset over the years, I was like, well, that's probably an easy call. So I think in a trading league, like if you wanted to try to buy low, like see if you could buy low on Reynolds, like he's not a superstar either. Like I think that is probably a window that could be open for you.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to take one last micro break. We are on the Blue Wire Network. Here are their ads. Thanks to the Blue Wire Network for hosting us and our podcast every season for a long time now. Thank you for your patience. Yu Darvish made his debut last night. Are you bullish on his chances going forward?
So I got to admit, I put Yu Darvish in for you because I think you are bullish on his chances going forward. So I thought you would really enjoy this one. Am I right on that? That you're feeling some
I am
Darvish optimism?
sanguine on his chances.
Okay.
I just like Yu Darvish. I think that's more it. I like him as a pitcher. I like how he conducts himself as a person. He wasn't great last night. It was his first outing back. Not really surprised about that one. Arizona got to him. Tough matchup there too for your first start back. What I did like were the strikeouts were there.
Yeah, for sure. I was doing some writing about Yu Darvish today, and I compared him to Clayton Kershaw, and that they're both older pitchers, really super talented pitchers, great careers. Clayton Kershaw looked awful in his first start back, and since then he's been solid. So I thought Darvish maybe same thing. Like it's the first start back for Kershaw was more about just being back. His first start back, he faced the Angels. He was even at home, 4 innings, 5 runs, gave up a homer, walked 3 guys. Just didn't look like Clayton Kershaw. Since then, he's been pretty good. So Darvish, I'm hoping for the same thing. Again, I think sometimes people forget some of these guys who have been out for a while and how good they were. Like last year, Darvish had 3.31 ERA and a 107 WHIP in 16 starts. So San Diego's a good place to pitch. I don't know. Like we'll see where it goes, but I think Darvish. I'd really like to have him. I don't have any shares of Darvish. I didn't get him as far as I wasn't the early bird to get him off waivers, a few weeks ago as he was trying to ramp his way back. I didn't have room to stash him. Unfortunately, I was probably stashing Logan Henderson instead, and maybe I shouldn't have done that. But because I'm still stashing Logan Henderson in some leagues, and I might do that through the trade deadline. So I've gone this deep. I might do it through the trade deadline now, but and see where the Brewers roster shakes out. But anyways, back to Darvish.
Theory. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, the Darvish theory, I could just see he got his feet wet. Let's see where it goes. I'm not saying you have to start him in his next start, but I think he could be okay in the second half.
You might be a little late on the next one for the Mariners, and George Kirby shoved on Sunday against the Pirates.
Yeah, I didn't feel again, some teams like a certain player would really jump out at me. The Mariners, not really. Like in the pitching staff, their pitchers are pitching well. They have good pitchers who are pitching well. I didn't want to take Bryce Miller, and then Andres Munoz is closing really well. So he's not going to be a fit. And it's in the offense, I didn't really have someone jump out at me. With Kirby, it's more just about volume. And his initial starts weren't great. So he arrives at the All-Star break. Actually, he's got one more start. He arrives at one start away from the All-Star break with a 4.22 ERA. Maybe he works that down to about 4 by the All-Star break. He could be someone with an ERA in the 2s in the second half. So, and a legit like top 10 starter the rest of the way. We're seeing the elite control, everything that we wanted to see from him. He had a few walks in his first 2 starts back. Last 4 games, 2 walks total.
Yep. All right, let's talk about the San Francisco Giants. All-star. He's already an all-star. How can it be better, Fred?
Well, I think this is one of the more interesting ones, I think. So as I started to dive in on the Giants, it's Randy Rodriguez. You're
Mhm.
right. Randy Rodriguez can't pitch any better, really, than he has so far. Camilo Duvall got a save last night, but he hasn't been good lately.
No,
Like
he hasn't.
his ERA since June 1st is high, um, and he's been really inconsistent. So the Rodriguez pick is more like just maybe a bit of a bet against Camilo Duvall. And Camilo Duvall has been inconsistent in the past couple of years. That's how we ended up with Ryan Walker, the closer last year. So Duvall last year lost his closer role. This year he got his closer role back. I didn't feel like he got it back because he was so good. I felt like he got it back because Walker blew it. And then Duvall was fine. So they gave it back to him. But he hasn't been great in the last few weeks. If he has a couple bad outings, maybe here going into the break or coming out of the break, I don't think they probably go back to Walker. Walker's been better, but I don't think they probably go back to Walker. He already lost the job once this year. It would be so easy to go to Rodriguez, like a 0.69 ERA, 54 to 8 strikeout to walk. Like it would be so easy to just say, this guy's far and away our best reliever right now. Let's just make him the closer. So that was my theory. That's why I wanted to mention him, was just to put it on the radar for people. Maybe in a 12-team league. How about this? If he's still sitting on waivers in some 12s, and I'm sure he is, just because middle relievers often don't get picked up in 12s. Coming out of the break, you're going to have a short week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're probably not going to have enough starts to use all your pitching slots that in those 3 games. Maybe you pick up Randy Rodriguez just to use him in those 3 games and just kind of see. Just maybe
Yeah,
see what
why
happens.
not?
See
Why
what
not?
happens, coming out of the break with
In
Duvall.
deeper leagues, he's already gone too, is the
For sure.
frustrating thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. We got one more. We're going through the S's, as they say in racing parlance, but we got one more S team. That's the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, so I mentioned Ivan Herrera because I just thought, imagine how sought after Ivan Herrera would be right now if he hadn't gotten hurt twice this year. So he's only played in 42 games. He's hitting 320 with a 925 OPS. This guy in his career, he's played 138 games. So basically like a heavy catcher season. He's a career 300 hitter. So it's time to really respect him as far as what he can do hitting for average. Like, he's not a flash in the pan as far as hitting for average. He can be a high BABIP guy. He's got enough games now to prove it. How many catchers are out there who could hit 300 in the second half? So I just think Ivan Herrera, if he had been healthy through the first half, might be sitting there right now with 15 home runs and a 300 batting average. And we'd be talking about him as a top 3 fantasy catcher. He's supposed to be back right after the break. In one catcher leagues, he's sitting on waivers in a lot of one catcher leagues right now.
For sure.
So I would strongly consider, maybe if my one catcher in those one catcher leagues is not that good. How about this? Sal Perez, who's not having a great season. If you had Sal Perez in a one catcher league, when Herrera comes back, would you say, you know what? I'm going to give Herrera a chance. I don't know. It's at least worth thinking about.
Worth thinking about, but I hate making those decisions on the margins because then, it's almost certainly going to go the wrong way. You bench a guy, or worse, drop a guy and he catches fire. That's the thing that it's probably messed up a little bit there. All right, let's go to the tees. Let's go to the fastest man in baseball, Chandler Simpson.
Yeah, and it really comes down to just the massive steals potential. So since Chandler Simpson's come back from the minors, he's tied for the major league lead in steals. Like over that stretch, it's like 5 steals or something like that. He's tied for the major league lead over that stretch. He's upped his batting average since he came back from the minors. He's hitting 309. I know this guy's not a walker, but like 309.
Why would you ever walk him? Why would you ever walk Chandler Simpson? Just throw it down the middle of the plate.
Right. And he does have 9. He's also, the thing about Chandler Simpson is he's also not a strikeout guy. So we give Jacob Wilson so much credit for being, not a big walker, but not a big strikeout guy. Chandler Simpson, I get he's not totally Jacob Wilson, but he has 15 strikeouts in 179 plate appearances. Like, Chandler Simpson does exactly what he's supposed to do with his skill set. His ground ball rate is also astronomical. So he does exactly what he's supposed for his comparison to most hitters. So he's exactly what he's supposed to do. He hits everything on low trajectory and he runs. And isn't that exactly what you want? This guy's got 24 steals in 48 games played, half, like a steal every other game. If he stays up for the rest of the year, even if they bat him 9th, and he could hit around 300 and steal a base every 2 games, steal you 3 bases a week, let's say, this guy is tremendously valuable.
All right. Texas Rangers, copious options here. Who did you settle on?
Yeah, a little boring maybe because pretty obvious, but I picked Corey Seager, and I want to jump back to what you mentioned. I think the Rangers should continue to try to go for it. Like as you
I
said,
agree.
like their team leads the majors in ERA, and pitching is such a huge part of obviously of success in baseball. And when we look at their lineup, and we talked about this a little bit last week, like Marcus Semien has ticked up a bit. Adolis Garcia has ticked up a bit. Seager really hasn't, but the potential is so great. Wyatt Langford is now back from the IL, hasn't had a great season, but like again, the potential is so great. If I'm sitting in the GM's office and I'm looking at those 4 players, and then some other guys around them that have been okay, like Josh Smith, and then a pitching staff that leads the majors in ERA, I'm thinking I'm going to keep going for it here in the second half, because if we get in the playoffs and we can pitch, like we've got a chance. So I think the Rangers will continue to go for it, and I just think Corey Seager fits the category of like he's too good, he's too talented to not turn things around, assuming he's
Right.
healthy.
You could make the case for Jake Berger. You could make the
Yep.
case for Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter. Marcus Semien's already kind of turned it around a little bit, but you make a case for him too. Yeah, there's a lot of like burgeoning, like under the bubble. They're 3 games under 500, but 4.5 out of the wild card, plus 424 in the run differential. And yet they lost again last night. They've lost 4 out of 6. They lost a couple of series they shouldn't have, including one against the Mariners, where every game went to extra innings. They've been historically bad in like extra innings. It's weird stuff like that, it's where they've, I wouldn't say historically bad, but they've been bad. I mean, there was a year that the Padres couldn't win a single game in extra innings. So they're 3-4. It's just recently they've been bad. 14 and 16 1-run games too. All right. Running short on time. Let's finish this up. The Toronto Blue Jays, easy layup question here.
Yeah, I took Anthony Santander. Just like we're talking about a guy who hit 44 homers last year. And just to take, I was recently writing about him, and to take away just last year, in the 3 years, because I know we love 3-year stats in baseball, in the 3 years prior to this one, he's 6th in the majors in home runs from 2022 to 2024. So this guy's a legit power hitter. And that's in Camden Yards, which they hadn't moved the fences until the last year. He's a legit power hitter. He got off to a slow start with a new team. We see it. Then he's got the shoulder injury. Maybe the shoulder will never be right this year. I don't know, but he's working his way back. I could see a scenario where maybe he comes back in the Blue Jays lineup around the end of July, goes back in the cleanup spot or hits 5th or something like that. Even if it hits 6th, the way their lineup's going. The Jays lead the majors in runs scored since the beginning of June. That's without him. That's with Vladdy just playing fine, nothing special. Bichette playing fine, nothing special. You could put him back in that lineup, and all of a sudden you've got a really high end power hitter for this stretch run.
All right, let's finish it up with the Washington Nationals.
Yeah, Luis Garcia Jr. So maybe not as glamorous of a pick as some of the other ones, but I picked him for the same reason I picked Bryan Reynolds. A little bit of just like an acknowledgement of what expected stats are and what they could potentially mean. And just Luis Garcia Jr.'s improved in really small ways this season. Like the strikeout rate's a little bit better. The average exit velocity is actually noticeably better. His expected batting average this year is 310. And he's hitting 265. Same thing with slug. His expected slug is 89 points higher than his actual slug. So he's someone who's been okay, but his expected stats have been really good. So maybe there's a chance that he hasn't been lucky, so we're not noticing some small skill improvements that if you add them all together could be a much better player. He's actually trending towards just kind of having actually a little bit of a worse season than last year. But his skills say that he should probably be playing a little bit better than last year.
Yeah. I thought, last year was finally a bit of the breakout. And so, how do you follow up the breakout year is kind of always interesting. And sometimes it's a breakout half, and maybe it'll break out better in the second half as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Fred, you powered through this. You brought a lot of energy to the conversation. You light up our life. Thank you for coming on and co-hosting with me with this one there. Good luck on getting a little of that power back in your home. And we'll do this again next week.
Sounds good. Yeah, you know what? I'd rather have the Blue Jays have power tonight than me. So hopefully,
there you go. You're
I'll live without it and continue to just use my data if they can keep the power going tonight.
All right, very good. That's going to conclude today's podcast. Make sure go get that RotoWire subscription. Use promo code YouTube15. Please like, rate, and review this podcast. As always, thank you for everybody jumping in on the live stream. We'll be back at you again next Tuesday. Thanks for listening. Take care.